Welcome to Middle Math Academy, Statistical Questions in Dot Plots, level number 2. This is part of our differentiated series where we have 5 levels of challenge for every topic. Let's get started. Our learning target today is I can determine if a question is statistical or non-statistical and explain why. And I can understand and interpret dot plots. Before we get started, rate yourself on these learning targets 1 through 5. 1 is the least confident and 5 is the most confident. At the end of today's lesson, we'll come back to these learning targets and we'll rate ourselves again. Our first note is on statistical questions. Make sure you're writing with me. Remember, you can always pause the video if you need more time. Statistical questions are questions that expect different answers and need data collection to answer. Variability is the expectation that the question will have different answers. So an example of a statistical question is, how much time does each sixth grader spend reading each day? We're asking more than one person. We're asking each sixth grader, and we can expect that they don't have the same answer. So that is a statistical question. Let's talk about non-statistical questions. Non-statistical questions have one fixed answer, and they don't need data collection. So an example is, what is the name of your school's principal? This question has one specific answer, so it is non-statistical. Go ahead and complete A, B, C, and D. Determine if the questions are statistical or non-statistical and explain. Then come back to the video to check your work. Check your work for problem A. Check your work for example B. Remember, non-statistical, there's just one capital, one answer. Check your work for example C. Remember, we're talking about each student and how many pieces of fruit they have. So because we're asking multiple people and the answers are going to be different, it's statistical. And then last but not least, example D is non-statistical because there's just one answer, and you guessed it, 12 is the answer. Just to go back to our learning targets real quick, our first one was to determine if a question is statistical or non-statistical and explain why. We just practiced that. And now we're going to practice understanding and interpreting dot plots. So let's finish off these notes. A dot plot is a simple way to display data using dots. And you can see an example of a dot plot at the bottom of this page. Each dot on a dot plot represents one data point or one person being surveyed. So each one of these dots at the bottom of the page represents one person and how many pets they own. If there's more than one dot above a number, it means that there are multiple data points with that value. So if you look at that dot plot at the bottom of the page, it looks like the most people own one pet. Looks like only one person owns 5 pets. Okay, because there's only one dot above 5, and then we have a ton of people who own just one pet. So if there are no dots above a number, it means there are 0 data points. So we can count all of the dots to find the total number of people surveyed. We're going to practice this in just a second at the bottom. So the bottom of our page says, answer each question about the dot plot below. So what is the dot plot about? Our first question is, the dot plot shows how many pets each person owns. Make sure you have this down. Our next question is, what does each dot represent? Remember, each dot represents one person and how many pets they own. Pause the video if you need more time. Now this part's important. You're going to be asked this a lot on the next few pages. How many total people were surveyed? Remember, each dot represents one person. And so we can just count how many dots there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So the answer for number 3 is 16 people were surveyed because there are 16 total dots. And make sure you're writing this because this example is going to help you on the next pages as well. The next question says, how many people own 3 pets? Okay, so remember our x-axis on our number line is labeled number of pets owned. So I can look and see, all right, well, here's 3. So I can see 2 people own 3 pets because there's 2 dots above 3. Make sure you have this down. And then our last question on this page, how many people own 2 or more pets? Okay, so because it says or more, we're going to count how many people own 2 pets. There's 3. But then we're also going to include all the numbers higher than 3. So this is more than 2, this is more than 2, and this is more than 2. So we can just add them together. 3 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 is 7. So 7 total people own 3 or more pets. Oh, sorry, own 2 or more pets. Make sure you have this down. Once you finish this page, check in with your teacher to get additional feedback. Page 2 says, determine if each question is statistical or non-statistical. Explain why. Remember, you can always go back to our notes if you need to. Complete problems A and B on your own, then come back to the video to check your work. Check your work for problem A. Check your work for problem B. Complete the rest of page 2, then check in with your teacher. On page 3, we're practicing the same thing. So go ahead and complete only those first two problems, then come back to the video to check your work. Check your work for page 3, letter A. Check your work for page 3, example B. Complete the rest of page 3, then check in with your teacher. On page 4, we're going to move into dot plot practice. Complete only problem A, then come back to the video to check your work. Let's check our work for page 4, example A. The first question says, what is a dot plot about? The first thing we should do is look at our dot plot number line and see what's labeled. This says hours spent exercising per week. So we know each dot represents one person and how many hours they spend exercising each week. And so for our first answer, we can write the number of hours each person surveyed spent exercising per week. The next question says, what is the total amount of people surveyed? To figure out the total, we count all of our dots. So in this example, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13 total people were surveyed. Oh, whoops, I forgot this 10 over here. It's 14 people, could be because there's 14 dots. What does one dot represent? One dot represents how many hours one person exercised. And then what's the shortest amount of time that a person spent exercising? So we can see on this dot plot that no one spent 0 hours. Okay, there's no dots above 0, but we do have a dot in between 0 and 2. So that means that this number must be 1, and 2 people spent 1 hour exercising. Make sure you have this down. Once you have this down, complete the rest of page 4 on your own, then check in with your teacher to get additional feedback. Complete problem D on page 5, then come back to the video to check your work. Check your work for problem D. Complete the rest of page 5 on your own, then check in with your teacher to get additional feedback. Complete all of page 6, then come back to the video. We're only going to check one problem on page 6, so make sure you do the entire thing. We're going to check common misconception problem number 2. It says true or false on the dot plot below, 7 people spent 6 or fewer hours on homework per week. So on our number line, we can see this represents hours spent on homework per week. And so here are the students who spent 6 hours on homework. We just have one student, but it says 6 or fewer hours. So we're going to include 6, and we're going to include all the dots fewer than 6 or less than 6. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dots. So the correct answer is true. There are 6 dots above the number 4. Here's those 6 dots. And there's 1 dot above the number 6, and 6 plus 1 is 7. Now that you've finished all of page 6, we're going to go back to page 1, and you're going to rate yourself on our learning targets again, but this time next to after the lesson. So we want to see if you have any growth in your understanding with our learning targets now that we've gotten some more practice. Once you finish rating yourself on page 1, check in with your teacher to get additional feedback. Thank you for joining us today at Middle Math Academy, where we practiced statistical questions and dot plots, level number 2. This is part of our differentiated series where we have 5 levels of challenge for every topic. If you're looking for any additional practice, make sure to check out level number 1, level 3, level number 4, or our most challenging level, level number 5. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful day.